Good evening, everyone. My name is Fabian Quinnell. I'm Klamath Modoc. I'm also enrolled in the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. I'm going to open us up this evening by singing one of our prayer songs that our canoe family sings to open a lot of events. So at this time, if you could please rise and remove your hats, I'd appreciate that.
You got to turn the mic on.
Should we give Fabian another round of applause? Hello, I'm Tracy Moreland. I am a member of the Grand Ronde Tribe and tribal liaison for the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners. This event is the newest result of a partnership the county has with the college through our equity and inclusion offices. Together, we formed the Indigenous Task Force focused on Native issues, visibility and inclusion, and education through different efforts. The Indigenous Task Force members from both organizations and our partner organizations, I think she's here somewhere, Trish Jordan from Red Lodge Transition Center here in Oregon City. There's Trish, very important partner in the county, and leadership from the Grand Ronde Tribe and other partner organizations. Last October, we worked together to organize the first Indigenous Peoples Day celebration here, held at the Environmental Learning Center. Thank you to the college for that. And the very first thing that we did when we formed the Indigenous Task Force was develop a land acknowledgement that the county uses, and I think it might be up there on the screen if you wanted to follow along. I'm going to read that before our guest of honor speaks. There are many Indigenous communities that have a historical, cultural, and spiritual connection to what is now Clackamas County. The Willamette Valley and surrounding areas, from the mountain range to the ocean, were honored by Indigenous groups for its diversity, beauty, and abundance. This is what drew people here for generations prior to colonization. We will never be able to name every tribe that has visited or lived upon this land because these communities frequently traveled for trade and other reasons. The Indigenous people lived, traded, and navigated along great rivers and tributaries presently named the Clackamas, Molalla, Pudding, Sandy, and Willamette. Many of the original inhabitants of this land died from disease brought on by early European settlers and French fur trappers. Those that survived fatal diseases and other conflicts were forcibly removed and relocated by the United States government because of the land's value. Today, descendants live on, carrying traditions and cultures, honoring their ancestors. We honor Native American people of Clackamas County as a vibrant, foundational, and integral part of our community here today. We respectfully acknowledge Wai'ist, also known as Mount Hood, and Hayastai Tamwada, also known as Willamette Falls, as sacred sites for many Native Americans. We thank those who have connection to this land and serve as stewards working to ensure our ecosystem stays balanced and healthy. Acknowledging the original people of the land is a simple, powerful practice that demonstrates respect by making Indigenous people's history and culture visible. It also is a small step along the path towards reconciliation and repair. Please join us in taking this opportunity to thank and honor the original caretakers of this land, the tribes of the Willamette Valley. Thank you. Hayamasi in Chinook jargon.
Good evening. My name is Tim Cook, and I'm the president of Clackamas Community College. And I want to thank all of the faculty and staff, students, community members, all of you who have taken the time to come out with us tonight and listen to this information, this educational information tonight. I want to recognize, I know we've got some elected officials in here. Would you please stand and wave if you're one of our elected officials here in Clackamas County? I know I saw a few of you, yes, as you came in. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Fabian, for the prayer and for the opening. That was lovely and a really nice way to start us off. And thank you, Tracy, for the land acknowledgement as well. Tracy said a number of these things, so I'll repeat a little bit of it. But you know, we've been using land acknowledgement here for several years at the college. And when we started doing that, it was really important to our campus that it wasn't just words on a screen or on a page, that we really put our words into action. And so we've really, over the years, been looking for different opportunities to provide educational opportunities for our students and for the community around the Indigenous peoples that came here before us. So we talked about Indigenous Peoples Day that we held here last year. We were very excited to hold that event. We're looking forward to the next one. You may have walked by or seen our Wachino Welcome Center, which was named after Chief Wachino of the Clackamas people, which we're really proud of that building as well. We also have been really focused on Indigenous art on campus, as well as Indigenous curriculum in our classes. And I know James, one of our instructors who teaches those classes, is here today. Thank you, James, for that work. And then, of course, we've committed to providing educational opportunities to learn more about Indigenous people here in our community, and that's why we're here tonight. So I'm going to introduce our speaker, Chairwoman Cheryl Kennedy. As chair of the Tribal Council of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, Cheryl Kennedy is a noted leader in both Indian public health and tribal administration. Chair Kennedy has enjoyed a long and distinguished career in Indian healthcare administration, served as Grand Ronde's tribal health director for more than 15 years. She previously served as the executive director of the Northwest Portland Area Indian Health Board. She's received the Outstanding Service Award from the National Indian Health Board, has been named an Outstanding Leader in Healthcare by the Oregon Department of Health. Currently serves on the boards of the Oregon Business Association, the Heritage Area Coalition, West Valley Hospital Foundation. Also, I think it's important to know a little bit more about Cheryl's hobbies and interests. Likes to make regalia, Native American jewelry, as well as other beadwork, and comes from a family of weavers, beaters, carvers, gatherers, fishermen, and hunters. College educated, and encourage all who want to further education to vigorously pursue that endeavor. Cheryl Kennedy believes in dreaming big, developing new ideas, and bringing the future to us. Her dream for the tribe is to have a healthy, happy, strong members. With that, Chairwoman Cheryl Kennedy, thank you so much for being our speaker tonight.
Good evening, everyone. When I listen to the introduction, I think, wow. But you know, as you age and get older, things do happen, and there are opportunities in your life that you need to embark upon. And one of the things I know that for me is been very important, in addition to be a traditional Indian woman, it's also to teach, to make sure that those that are following you know the way. And the way is by effective leadership, by example, and by using all the training tools that you can to show and demonstrate the lessons that they will have to confront and how to navigate those lessons. As we live this life here, we know that not everyone is going to be a rocket scientist, and we know not everyone is going to be an attorney or a doctor, which was my career. I enjoyed that career for decades, really. But the purpose behind all of that, I think, is a theme that can ring true through every person, and that is to help your fellow man, to be the one that will take the risk to step out. If you see someone who's fallen down, to give a hand to help them up. If you see a child that seems lost, help them to find their parents. Help them to enjoy this life and to make sure that the life you lead, you know that there are eyes always on you, and that to set the best example that you can. The other thing that being raised by my grandmother was that you have to laugh. Laughter is so important to life that there are enough stressors throughout the day that we need those light times when we can look at one another and sometimes just burst into laughter because of whatever, seems funny to you. So that is how I want to start this lecture and the people of Grand Ronde. It caused me to pause and to really think about what do people want to learn? What do they want to know about our people, about my people? My heritage is from the people right here, from the Clackamas tribe. Chief Wachino was my great-grandfather. And I believe his spirit is still here with us today, still leading us and guiding us. And it's, to me, I get awestruck sometimes that I think our villages were down here, the falls that Creator gave us, our Tamanwas, which is the meteorite that's in New York in the Library of Natural History, that our Creator, Tyee, sent to our people as an object of healing, and how Oregon City recognized that that was an important item. And I look to Tracy Moreland here. Her mother was the one who helped navigate and to preserve the meteorite that we now have, that we visit annually in New York City. and that it's on display to teach and to show, to shine as a light there, that there are objects that are sent as it from the heavens, and that one truly was to provide healing for not only our people, but to those who visit. So I think about those things and how remarkable it is that I, as a great-granddaughter of the treaty signers here in this place, now stand before you. It's very humbling. I know that there could probably be a whole lot more, but I'm here. And one of the things that was mentioned in the land acknowledgement, our people here were thousands, literally thousands of our people lived here. Our villages, there were 3 villages right along the river here. Our villages were plank houses. And so and I know a lot of people are curious about Tumwata Village, which is the property that now is back in the ownership of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, about what's going to happen there. But as we reclaim the land, we're always mindful of what is beneath all of the work that's been done, the years of labor, and the layers, the many layers of different eras, because we know that our ancestors' bones are all over. And so we're very mindful to look and to be respectful and to make sure they're taken care of in the honorable way that they need to be taken care of. So I do have in my purse, Leah, is on that date. Caleb, would you find the story? I want to start with our creation story. You know, I believe every culture has a creation story. What it was like, where you came from, how things were created. And so we have one of this area itself, and it was handed down through generations. We're an oral people, and so we learn by telling stories. The winter time is the time that we tell stories, but because of this occasion, we're just, almost coming out of winter, I believe. Where it's kind of a question, but we tell stories then. And so the story was preserved through a family of one of our people. His name was Mr. Conoyer, and it was translated from our native tongue to English. It's on the April 18th date under Greg A. So, you know, when we think about those things, we know that the peoples that lived on the land received visions, you received dreams, you received messages that were somewhat unexplainable. And so we're still believers in those things. The introduction that the President Cook gave was really about, I talked about dreams, and I know I wrote that many, many years ago. And so to hear it today, I thought, oh, wow, I wrote that probably almost 25 years ago. And I think about that, and I'm still the same. I'm still grounded in the fact that we as humans who live here are here for a purpose. And many times those things don't change. Yes, the events change, the tasks change, but you're still the same person moving forward with that purpose in life. And again, one of the things that I thought about my purpose was to help people to understand what we're about and who we were about. So I'll go ahead and, that's not it, but I can find it. You know, this elder lady can still kind of navigate these things. Not the best, but I can do that. Sometimes I chuckle because I was one of the first 3 people who were hired with the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. And I was hired to develop all of our health, social services, and to work on our education plans. So I was somewhat of a planner, and I was really a dreamer. But when I did that, I thought, wow, dream big. Whatever you're going to do, dream big. And so from that point of view, I recognized that, and I was young. I think I was the age of my oldest grandson here when I came to Grand Ronde and I was hired, and I started writing. I started looking at, first, of course, natural resources, very important to Native people. And I thought, we've got to truly make sure that our natural resources, our land is taken care of. And so, as I think I found it, maybe, looks like it. But as I was one of those first employees, I was one who bought the first computer for our tribe. And I think it's in our museum. So, when you get ideas, you just go for it, and if you have the means to make things happen, then just make sure that you do that. So, anyhow, that was that. For how my people lived here, and I'm going to skip around a bit, but being raised as a Clackamas Indian person, we continued to fish here. And the fishing is nothing like it is now. And the example I'll use is that when we came to catch squaquill or eels, we did so by going up the river. And when we got to the falls, you would swear the falls was alive because it was just full of eels that hung, and they were squirming, they were moving, making their way up. And my two sisters and my brother would go up there, and our grandma had these huge big potato called gunny sacks. They're 100-pound sacks. They're big. And we would fill many of them. And of course, like I said, laughter is very important. My brother, who was a trickster of sorts, would get those eels and he'd stick them to our neck. He said, now you're going to go to school on Monday. They're going to be asking you what that is on your neck. So we did have a lot of fun in doing that. I can't seem to find April the 18th on here, but basically what it is the creation story. Tallapus, who is Coyote, a significant character to us, wanted to fish. And so he came up the river, and he stopped at many different tributaries along the way. And there were formation of different sandbars that are here today, different rocks that are still today, and these are ancient stories. And he finally came down here by Willamette Falls. He and Meadowlark took a line and they went across the river, and it caused the waters to stop. And the fish kept coming and coming and coming. And so he went back and he'd say, I got to start a fire. But the fish keep coming. So he would go back, get more fish. He never was able to start his fire. And so the conclusion of that was that the water stood still so that he could go and start fire and bring fire. So I don't know if that is recorded anywhere in any books, but from our relatives, that story was handed down, and it is in our readings. So I'm not sure about where it may be published or not. But that's the creation story of Willamette Falls. And as we look on down through time, we think about, well, what happened to the peoples that were here? as I stated earlier, there were thousands of us, nearly 100,000 people in this area right here. And it was the river produced and the environment produced more than enough fish, salmon, squawk, eels. We had smelting, sturgeon. Not far from here, there was a huge sturgeon pool that we caught as well. But all of the many fish that came here, it supported not only our people, but many of the tribal people from Oregon, but much further than that. This was the largest place of commerce west of the Mississippi. And so tribes came from distances to come and to get their fish. And we, as the heads of the fishing, I guess, industry here, managed the fisheries. And we did it so in an orderly fashion. It wasn't a big war out there, but it was we served as welcomers to people who came. We invited them to take what they needed, to fish, not to waste, but to fish for your families, stay and dry your fish, your foods, and it became a place where we exchanged what we needed. We needed obsidian, we needed flint, we needed roots that were not grown here, we needed other hides, supplies that we needed. So it was a bustling place where tribal people all came together. And so today, when I think about Tumwata Village, of course, you all have heard about the Riverwalk that will be going in on our property. It really is in collaboration with other tribes on how we will together work on cultural kind of things where we can sing and dance together, tell stories, have that kind of a relationship. But it's also for all people who want to come and see the falls, to experience the powerful spray, but not only that, if you listen deeply and carefully, you can hear the power of the river, the real creation of what that is like. The second largest falls by water volume in the United States of America is right here. And when I think about that, I feel very reverent. I can just feel the presence of my ancestors. I can feel the presence of our Creator and the great gift that He has given us, and that's to be shared. So I will go ahead and I want to read some things that are very important. We think about the experience of the American Indian here. We know that treaties were entered into for many years, starting with the East Coast Indians, and it traveled west. And the reason for treaties, as we look into history and learn that the way of acquiring land, basically, was there were a few methods that were applied. One was through the treaty process, another was by war, another was by integrating into the peoples itself, and so they became your people. But those were practices that were brought forward. Of course, the doctrine of discovery, it tells us about the decision when tribal people of this new world, this new land, not new to us, but new to other people, was to come in and to not discover it, but how to take over it. So it was through the treaty process, and they looked to the churches at the time were very powerful, like governments, and practiced certain things in order to acquire lands. And they determined that we were people. that people that lived on North America, we were people, so we fit the bill that you need to go ahead and treat them like people and enter into treaties. When you think about that back in the day, there was a big language difference. And so when the forces came and said, we want to enter into treaties, who are your headmen? How do we negotiate with them? They had no idea in the world what you're saying. And so they brought them and they read treaties and they tried to interpret and tried to make, I want to believe, the best case that they could to say, this is a good exchange. This is a peace treaty. It's a treaty where you will still be able to live. You'll be able to live like you used to. And, everything will be fine. You will be protected. People won't be coming in to take your lives. Your children can grow up here. And so treaties was the method that was used to acquire lands. And in the process, there was a reserved piece of land where you would agree to move to. And so that was the process that happened here. The Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, and I do have a few handouts up here, and I'm not sure, I thought, yeah, there's the map there. There was that area that was reserved for us. So this excerpt is from a woman, I believe is in the history books, I'm not real sure. Her name was Victoria Howard. She was a relative of mine. She was born in the 1800s. And there was I'm not sure if he was a linguist or what his background was. His name was Melville Jacobs. Many might know him or have read of his readings. And this was taken in 1930. And they were specifically asking, when the reservation was created and all of the peoples that were in this area were pulled together, they were actually driven. What was that like? And she was talking to this Melville Jacobs, and he said, she's telling him that she was married to Dan Wachino at Warm Springs, who we see the name out here on one of the buildings. So very important woman in the tribe. And it basically says she was the longest surviving wife of the Clackamas Treaty signer, Ol Wachino. And that was Dan Wachino's father. And they lived here in this area. And she's explaining that when she went to her American friend, that woman told her, soon now they're going to take you all away. She told her, don't leave anything here. Go put your canoe away somewhere. Someone will take care of it for you. When you know the fish and such things are on the way, the eels are coming. Then you can come again and you can dry your food. Then you will have to go back. That's the way you all will do it. Where they take you, they'll give you land. They'll build houses for all of you. They'll give you everything, she said. Now, who knows how long time it was? Then they took the people away. She went to see that woman, and the woman told her, for quite some time now, they have been rounding up the people from all over, taking them to Dayton, Oregon. She went back. She got home. Her husband had already broken up their canoe. She packed everything up. The next day then, they put them on a steamboat. That was a mere flat thing, probably a barge. Then they put some of them there. My mother's mother said her Molalla people didn't know what was going on. She put packs on one horses and rode another. She came to Oregon City. She got there. She had come to deliver meat to her relatives. The very next day then, they took the people away. They took her away too. She left her 2 horses there. They got to where they, the government, had gathered the people at Dayton. Then they had her there by herself for a long time. That was before they had brought in my grandfather, my uncle, who was still a boy, before all the Molalas were brought in. Off we went. They brought us to Dayton, where they gathered together all the Indian people. It was unbelievably crowded in that camp. That next day, they killed cattle. They killed hogs. They brought them. Likewise, sugar, lard, potatoes, flour, all kinds of things they brought and gave us. Some of the people would not eat it. They just cried. The next day, they're still crying. That's the way it was. They spoke to some one man from each gathered people. And they said, "Oh, you're the chief." He was to be responsible for his people. Some of them wouldn't eat the meat of cows. Even more would not eat pig. But I learned to eat it. The white woman taught me that I needed to eat it. I dried the beef. The sugar I packed in a sack. I made use of everything. We stayed there for quite a while. At houses, they put up tents for us. They took a number of the men. They went and showed them the country. First, a place nearby, Ballston. No way, they didn't want that. They took them further to where we now live at Grand Ronde. That's where the Indians live today. The mountains are good for hunting. The plan was to make farmers out of the people. But the land was not good for farming. They didn't give any tools for them to farm either. They also seen, as they looked across these lands, they seen camas and wild celery, parsnips, lots of every good food for us to eat was there. Then that's the one they chose, this place at Grand Ronde. The Umpquas, Shastas, Rogue Rivers, Kalapuyan speakers, the Yankalas, they brought them all here. At first, they gave us only tents. As for us, we built log houses. It was very crowded with people. Some of the houses were already on the places parceled out, called allotments. Thereon there stood some apple trees. Some had no houses. Later on, little houses were built for them. I myself saw these log houses. They gave my mother's father one of them. There were some big apple trees standing there, so they lived there. One man by the name of Desqua was given a house. It was big and gray. There were apple trees there. Over across there was a Kalapuya man named Joe Hudson or Hutchinson. There was a log house. It was a big house. It was quite a long time before they even gave us any land. They said that when we moved, the treaty said every man would have land. He had a paper for land. We didn't see the paper. We want to see the land. We want it given. At that time, what she didn't understand was that the reservation's land was not officially allotted until 1891. They moved some across the river to what they call New Grand Ronde, where some live now. Then when we came to visit, they built houses on the other side, which is called Old Grand Ronde. These were remarks that were made by an elder woman. Like I said, it was recorded from the language in her experience in being moved from here, she and her family. And I was thinking about that, and I thought, and still we have tiny houses. We still have camps, and we still are looking for the land. And I thought, this is, something to do some soul searching about. And, as people, I know that in our hearts we can all do better. I know that there's a place in our hearts that we do have to look out for one another. And so I thought it was important to read that in something well over probably 150 years. It was recorded in 1930. It's almost 100 years ago. And there's little change. The one change that we did have, that in the treaty-making era, there was a treaty called the Clackamas Treaty. It was developed on November 6, 1851. It was not ratified, but it was folded into the Kalapuya Treaty. That's, I don't know if the language is up there, but that was signed on January 22nd, 1855 for this land right here. The signer on the part of the chiefs on the Clackamas Treaty also included my grandfather and his brother. Both the Wachinos signed that treaty. It didn't get through Congress, and then was folded into the Kalapuya Treaty, also known as the Willamette Valley Treaty. They included the Tumwater Chinook of Willamette Falls, the Clackamas, and the Watlala Band of Tumwaters. Those are the peoples who were incorporated and were people of this lands. Yes, we did have many visitors that we welcomed and continue from other tribal groups, but this was the land that was ceded. And one of the things about treaties is that we had peace treaties. So in exchange for certain things, we were going to receive a reservation, a place to live, a place to hunt, a place to fish, raise families. And it took years for that treaty to actually take effect. And then, for those who might not know, in 1954, there was the Termination Act, and it affected us. And the land that we had then was taken. There was no compensation, it was just taken. Said, okay, you guys are free. Like, I was born then. I was living then. Free? What do you mean, free? What? So all of our land was taken. Some stayed around, others navigated to other tribal areas to live, and yet you were treated differently. I know that I was. My family went to a reservation, and we couldn't receive health care or services of any kind there because we were not Indian. And I'd look at myself and I'd think, I don't look any different than anybody here. How could I not be Indian? And so the scarring that took place and the wounds that are still there among my people are largely because of the trauma of being nobody in this United States of America. You're not who you thought you were. And so we deal with issues that continue, and when I talked about tiny houses, we at Grand Ronde, we're trying to do that for our members whose hearts are so sick and broken because of all of this trauma, that we are trying to make a difference and to welcome them home. But I will say this, you know, many people think the Confederated Tribes of Grand Round, oh, that's that rich tribe. We're the largest populated tribe in Oregon. We have almost 10,000 reservation acres. No one lives on it because it's for economic development. It's trees that grow that can help support our services. When we were restored back in 1983, after the termination, there were many who fought a fight that said, we're not going to take this laying down. We know who we are. We are Indian people. We're Grand Ronde Indians, and we're going to have that standing again as other tribes, our neighboring tribes in Oregon, as the Warm Springs tribe, as the Umatilla tribe, as the Burns Paiute tribe. We're going to achieve that as well. And so we fought, and it was achieved in 1983. Many people do not recognize that when we were restored, all of our rights, all of our treaties were all returned by the United States of America. And so those old treaties in the 1800s, we have 7, are all restored. There are some examples, well, they're not examples, they're copies actually of our treaty that covers this area. And there are few tribes, I think there are like 36 tribes in the United States that actually have language in their treaty that says that they will be provided a hospital, doctors, and nurses. Ours say that. It also says that you will be provided schools with teachers. We're still waiting on that. It says that you will have a place where you can live peaceably and raise your families. And we have to buy back acre by acre every piece of land that we get. So the treaties, while they are the supreme law of the land, they didn't go away. Some people say, oh, they're just old, that doesn't mean anything. They're the law of the land. And so, you know, we continue to remind the Congress that we're here yet. Our people, we say, the treaty said we will provide housing, and I kind of chuckle when I read Victoria Howard's about the housing situation then. We have nearly 6,000 members in 250 homes at Grand Ronde. And so it's the same, and I think, wow, some things have to change here. But you know, one of the things that I also mentioned earlier is that laughter is so important, because if you get so heartsick, you have no hope. That reflects on your children. It reflects on your own ability to do what you were meant to do on this earth that we live in. The good that can be done, all of the ideas, all of the fostering of relationships, how to minimize and find ways of reducing discrimination, of looking at one another in the eye when we see each other, not only here, but in the store or on the street, to be able to look at one another and recognize one another. That's what feeds the soul, and that's also what is in every one of us. You know, many of you may know Greg Archuleta. He's a cousin of mine as well, and he's of the Clackamas people. On my grandmother's side, my maternal grandmother, we are Umpqua and Rogue River, and so the southern peoples on my mother's father's side, it's all from here. And I was thinking about my grandpa, Elmer Choop in our language, and he would tell these stories that, you know, sometimes you kind of scratch your head and think, is he really telling the truth? And then now, as I've done more research myself into things and sayings that he had, they're from ancient sayings. And I thought, wow, and here we thought he was just kidding us, but he was really right on. I just wanted to mention also that we used to have a wild strawberry gathering at Gladstone, a place where we played games as we were athletic people, and so we liked to do things. Games, stick games, of course, that was very, in its day, was a gambling game, and we loved doing that. And when we would potlatch and all of the other tribes would come together, these are the things we would do. We would play games as well. And so there was a game called Shinny, and you may have known about that, but it was like kind of like hockey, kind of like field hockey. And there would be big team contests that went on all the time. There were certain signs that I know that my grandma taught me. You go down by the river and check and see if the she called them the flies, but they weren't really flies, if they've come. So we'd come, and we knew that was to tell us the fish are coming. The fish are coming. And we'd go, and we'd be, but there was actually contests between our boys, our young boys. They're probably about 10, 12 years old. They would have foot races, and the winner would be able to go and put the stakes in the grounds for the fish that were coming. The marker was carved in the shape of a crane, a blue heron actually, and they were put there to welcome the fish as they came. And we have been able to do that as a tribal people for the past, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years. We've been able to do that, and it's a wonderful feeling to know that while these ceremonies that we conduct still have meaning today, and that we still can keep in touch with the earth, and that's what gives us life. Many things that went around here, people get curious and ask. Well, as Victoria said, people didn't want to eat the meat that was brought to them. That's because we were hunters. We hunted the deer, we hunted the elk, we ate bear, we ate ducks. And I want to invite you all to come to our museum at Grand Ronde. It is wonderful. The canoe displays that we have out there as a water people. These were our highways, and we were tremendous canoe people. We would even go out on the ocean in our canoes. But they have some on display there. They have on display jewelry. Even back then, we loved jewelry. We'd make jewelry. You can see the fish hooks and the gaff hooks that we used that are on display. You can see the arrows and the bows made out of yew wood and various other woods. But it's a wonderful place to go and see. I was privileged to be asked to do a session on cradle boards, and I did so. When you think about cradle boards, I remember I had my son. He's an elder now. My son is an elder, and that kind of blows my mind. And I thought, well, what's that say about you? But anyhow, I lived here in Portland, and I had him in our baby board. And we'd be going, and people would stop me and say, what is that? I'd say, well, that's a baby board. It's to keep him safe, and he feels cradled. He doesn't get annoyed because, or anxious because there's a lot of people around. And the hoops that we put on them really stimulate them. It starts their thinking, and they're able to help develop their minds. And they'd say, oh, I wouldn't do that. Those look like they're cruel. And I think, well, yeah, that's... But now then, when you think about it, you think about the forerunners of the car seats. And then you think about some of the things I know I was taught, and my mother, she was like a baby whisperer. She just passed away, she was 97. And any baby, I don't care who it was, she would get them, and we call them Ushi. She would Ushi the baby, and they just loved her. But she would wrap them up in a way, and she always taught us, don't ever lay your babies on their stomachs. And we never did. Afterwards, we found out, SIDS, don't lay your children on their face. And I thought, you know, the wisdom that our people had needs to be taught more and more. I look at our timbers, and I talk to our senators, and I often talk about fire control, wildfire control here in Oregon. And I said, please listen to the Native people. They know how to get rid of the undergrowth and the brush. Thousands of years of taking care of this earth was because we knew how to use fire. We knew how to maintain that. And now there's so much fuel. So please, in your talks or wherever you go before the Department of Interior, BLM, all of them, encourage them to talk with the tribal people because they have answers that you're seeking for. There are many truths that the Native cultures have, and I believe it's time that those things are embraced, and I want to thank the president here for inviting me to talk about the peoples from this area right here and how we lived and how we survived. The great sickness that came almost wiped us out, that was brought in by the explorers, almost wiped us out. When you think about 100,000 people that were here, and by the time we were terminated in 1954, there were 900. And it was because of the disease that was brought here. We didn't have immunities because we didn't have that built up in us to isolate us or immunize us from those new germs. And we all know what a pandemic can do. I mean, we're living it today. So today, at Grand Ronde, we're able to provide for our members education, health services, all of the things that were in our treaties. That's what we do. And the bulk of our funds that are generated from our casino go to do that. They're governmental services that we provide. And I'm so pleased that we're able to do that. I'm not sure if we had to rely upon the government, if we would ever even get a portion of that. So, and I'm not a bad mouther of the United States of America at all. I'm really not. I have great respect and honor for our military and for all of the people who have fought. The other thing that folks don't know is that Native Americans serve at a greater ratio, proportion in the armed service than any other race here in America. And that's because we believe in it. We believe in freedom. We believe that we as equals can do mighty things, but it's that coming together that sometimes, you know, my grandma, she was very wise. She'd tell us, if you can't say anything good, just keep your mouth shut. And I think that's good advice, that to give it the second thought before you say it is always a good thing to do. I don't know how much more time that I might have, but I did ask that there be time left for questions. If anyone had any questions that you might have. I'll try my best to answer what might be on your mind. But I want to introduce you, before you do that, I have my grandkids with you. As you can see, we're still going on. I have 3 grandchildren of mine, and I look at 2 of them, and they're middle-aged. So Leah, would you stand, and Caleb, and Orange John. They are all... They're all doing well. They're members of the tribe, and I try to bring them by being the example so that they can learn what their task might be, although that's their choice. I seen a hand back there. Yes?
I'm living in Gladstone, and when you mentioned the Strawberry Festival in Gladstone,
Uh-huh.
I especially perked up. I've been paying rapt attention to everything you said, but that really perked me up. And I was wondering, when was that held, where you think the games, where the games were played, and do you know where it was held? Is this on?
I know that the tribe does know where it was held. A lot of times, we don't reveal a lot of that information. In the past, we know that there has been desecrations that have occurred when we reveal, certain things. If we know where certain petrograph writings are, we've learned not to publish that. But yes, it was, of course, strawberries are same season. They'd be about now. The shinny games, they came during the fishing season, because that's when everyone would gather and come here. So that was starting in the spring, early spring, till, you have fall, spring and fall runs. So that was the time.
Was that during the potlatch that you mentioned?
Yes.
where all the
Yes, the
tribes-
gathering.
The gatherings?
Uh-huh,
I
yes.
find that fascinating that it was held in Willamette Falls. I'm sorry, I haven't gotten used to saying
Tumwata, yeah.
the tribal name for Willamette Falls, so but I'm sure we'll become more familiar with that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your comment. Thank you. We have,
Just make sure it's turned on. There's that way. Test it out, Chris.
I hear it. Oh,
I think it's on. Hi, thank you so much for coming today. My name is Chris Roner. I'm actually the board of director member for this zone in Oregon City. I was born here in Oregon City, as was my father, as was his grandfather. So the tradition of this area has always intrigued me and been a part of me, but I've also always known that we don't know the full story, and so glad that you're here telling it. My question is, do you guys intend to, in the Riverwalk, in the property that you got, put your museum, put any of that history on display there for us to learn? And how can we here at the college help you in that effort?
thank you for that question. Yes, the full plans are not developed, but we do have spaces like that are being created as we move along. Yes, it's very important to have the knowledge there. I believe that enrichment just helps all of us. Thank you. I will remember that you said that. Probably the battery.
Green light on.
Oh, there. Thank you.
I'm a little nervous, not that it's all loud. I was going to ask a couple of questions, but when you mentioned that you've learned not to reveal your locations due to desecration, that really spoke to me. my school has a Pride event that also doesn't reveal its time or location until closer to, and then it's emailed separately because fear of desecration and such. So that really spoke to me as well. And I've noticed that that's a trend through a lot of different like cultural events that are put on. But I was really curious about how traditionally like white colonialist perceptions of value have maybe influenced or changed, especially compared to traditional native perceptions of value,
Well,
and,
there,
like property and such.
you know, I'll just use this example. When we were restored in 1983, I was elected to serve on our first tribal council. And I was fairly young back in 1983. And we asked in our restoration bill that we be allowed to select certain lands not to be given to us, but to be returned to us. And so they agreed upon that, and so they basically said, go out and look at certain lands, and for those who might know, the lands that they asked us that could be available to us were ONC lands, and ONC lands are often connected to funding of education. And so we went out to many, many different parcels, and the land that we decided upon is what we have now, and it was nearly 10,000 acres. And we knew that our task, the Bureau of Indian Affairs was there. They were the foresters were the ones who were driving us all over. And I remember a conversation, and this is kind of an example of how we as Native people still believe. We were going up in the Crummy, in the BIA Crummy up in the hills, and it was late November. It was snowing up in those higher altitudes. And I told my fellow council women, because it was us four women who were going up there. The men, for whatever reasons, had other things they had to do. And I was telling, some may know Catherine Harrison. She served on council with me as well. And Eula Petit was a teacher in the area, and she was actually former Governor Roberts' teacher when she lived in the area. And Candy Roberts, and it was the four of us. And we were going, and I thought, I was kind of groaning in myself, because when I looked at the trees, I didn't see dollar signs in my eyes. I thought, these are beautiful, but I knew that was our mission. That was what we had to select, because it was for economic development. And so we were getting weary of the many trips that we made. And so I said, well, you know, we need to decide. We need to decide, and we need to get out there, and we need to walk all over the one that we want. Not knowing this story then about Victoria. But anyhow, Eula looked back at me. She said, did your tamanwas tell you that? That's your medicine. And I said, yeah. She said, well, tell us. And I said, well, you know, years before, I had I guess some might say a vision. But it was when I lived in Central Oregon, and I was trying to make a decision to move to Eastern Oregon with my husband because his parents were very ill. And when I thought of going over there to very dry, arid, I thought, but anyhow, I was just troubled, and I was struggling, and early one morning, it was in the fall, the beginning of fall, my room got light, our bedroom, and I thought, what is this? Is someone flashing a light in here? What is this? But it wasn't. I was laying there, and I heard, whether it was outside, like you talking audibly, or whether it was But anyhow, what I heard was, yes, go ahead, go on over to where your husband's people are, because I'm married to a Burns Paiute Indian. Go over there and you help them. You help them become strong. And then I'm going to take you, when that's done, be a very short while, I will take you to the land that I've given you and your people. And so I thought, well, first thing, yeah, I better go. So we all moved over there for 4 years to the day. September 30th, we were going over the desert, and September 30th, we were returning, coming to Grand Ronde. And those kind of things are still there. So an example of how do we look at values, how do we listen, how have things changed you? Things change. Automobiles get newer, computers, clothes styles change, music changes. But who we are in here is who we really are. And for us, for me, for example, in answering, is it about economics? Is that what you're into? Is it about, no, it's not. Can I say 100% of our people feel that way? No, but we're teaching and we're believing that it's us who are important. This earth we live on, and we have to live together, so. Someone else could very well give you a different answer, but that's mine. You're welcome. We have a hand back over here.
In the material from Victoria Howard that you read, she mentioned people going from Grand Ronde to Fish at
Yes.
Willamette Falls. Did the termination nix that? And to
Yes.
what degree did restoration restore that?
Well, the part of I didn't read some excerpts. Part of it was when our people were moved to Grand Ronde, to the Grand Ronde Indian Reservation, in order to fulfill the part that says that you can continue to hunt and fish in your areas. You had to have a pass. The area was like a marshaled camp. You couldn't leave. There are pieces that I left out where the soldiers were there with horses, guarding, and in order for you to leave and to come and fish back here, you had to have a pass that went through the militia. They were the ones who had to approve you're leaving the area. So that did continue on up until termination. Termination took everything away. I mean, like I said, even our identity. All of that was gone. Restoration. This is kind of a hard story to tell. I was served on our first tribal council, and our job was to, number one, go get land returned, to have our rights restored as much as possible, all of those things. And so there were a number of hearings that were held, all in Portland and in Salem and different areas. And we were met with the most hostile group of people when we brought up hunting and fishing. We were in the BLM auditorium in Salem. I got up to speak. I couldn't hear myself speak, even though I had a mic that could boom. I couldn't even hear myself speak. I felt like if those people could have gotten killed me, they would have. It was that hostile. Booing, yelling, calling names. It was horrible. And the underlying theme was that you will never get any of that. That's ours. And so it's still,
1984.
yes, it's still, that's where we're at. And today, we do have a bill in Congress that I believe I will be testifying. It's 5 years that I've gone back to testify on it. and that's on hunting and fishing rights. And so the Siletz tribe and our tribe are going together. We're the only two tribes in the United States of America that have a decree that says we will never be able to hunt or fish. And so that bill is I'll be going back in June to testify on that. And it seems like there's a little more open heart to do that. Thank you.
Here we go.
Well, Chairwoman Kennedy, I can't thank you enough for coming and sharing your stories and really helping us learn more about your people's history and this space. I had no idea that it'd only been 40 years since it'd been restored. It's just amazing, and how much history is here in this place. I'm so appreciative. And your graciousness and you reminding us to have laughter,
Yeah.
and all this is just so important. So I thank you so much. We have some gifts for you. About 3 years ago, we were here at the college, we were finishing up our Welcome Center, which you may have passed as you come through here. And knowing that we were on the land of the Clackamas people, we really wanted to name this building and be respectful about it. And so it was Zoom, so we joined the tribal council on Zoom, several of us did, and said, what would be the most respectful name that we could have? And you right away said, you need to name it after Chief Ochino. And so we did.
Yes.
And you came and to our opening, and I tell you, the fact that we have a welcome center every day that people come in and see Ochino on the top and Chief. We're just so proud of here at the college and so appreciative of your partnership on that. And so we have a picture and a plaque of the Ochino Welcome Center for you that we wanted to give you.
Thank you.
And this is, you're going to have to tell me this.
I'm probably not going to get this right. Hello, everyone. It's also a smudge
Thank
Hi.
you.
from our
Thank you so
Trish Jordan
much.
at, oh my goodness, my brain has stopped working. Red Lodge, thank you from a people, Red Lodge.
Thank you.
And we also have from our horticulture program, we've got a large plant for you that will help you get out of here as well, because it's rather heavy. But thank you again so much for being here.
welcome.
Thank you, all of you, for joining us and listening. And we appreciate all of the learning. We look forward to learning more and helping our community learn more about the Grand Ronde tribe and our people. Thank you.
Thank you.